Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Hope you had a good weekend and all is well. So let's go ahead and fire away. You can unmute yourself or type in. Fire away.
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Hey, Miss Ann.
I had a question about my sister and also about
Oh,
Okay.
shibumi, if there's a protocol that's simpler than what was in the workshop.
you cut out. I only caught parts of what you said.
Oh,
So
okay. My sister has fainted
it's okay, quick.
twice
You just
since
keep cutting out.
Christmas time and then again. Oh, I'm downstairs. It's so hard with the reception
Yeah,
Yeah.
darn
in
it.
the country. Let me, my sister is fainting
Fainting. Okay.
and 2 times in the hospital. They don't come up with diagnosis.
Okay. I only caught pieces of this, so I'm just going to recap. So your sister is fainting, but when she goes into the ER, it sounded like they don't really find anything. She's been checked for low blood pressure or no?
I don't know. The hospital is not.
Sometimes with blood pressure, it can fluctuate. Like it can go high or go low, and then by the time you take it, it can be normal again. And so the thing that I would start off
She
with,
even fainted in the hospital.
I didn't understand. What did could you
Oh,
make?
she even fainted in the hospital.
Oh, she fainted in the hospital.
Oh, okay. Bad reception.
Yeah, fainted in the hospital, and they didn't find low blood pressure. Hmm.
They haven't said. I don't know.
Has she had like significant levels of stress or a shock or something that's happened in the last few weeks?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. So, I mean, because sometimes it can be like a kind of shock, it could be all kinds of things, but right off the bat, I would say we want to do a thing to help regulate the medulla oblongata, which is that little area at the back of your head. And the center has an impact on circulation, on respiratory rate, and cardiac function. And, so like things like blood pressure and um, I would treat that right off the bat just to make sure. Um, the treatment for that is actually very simple. It's hyssop, like just standard regular hyssop, inhaled multiple times a day, and then several drops on the wrist or even on the bottoms of the feet, and have her do that twice a day as well. Like put like 3-4 drops on her skin. And then let's see what happens. Like give it a good solid week of treatment, and let's see if the fainting and all of that diminishes. I mean, there can be other reasons, but it starts to get way more complicated. Right off the bat, you look at like blood pressure and, is there some form of shock or excessive amounts of stress? Does she have the tendency
No.
to dissociate or, all these kinds of things? But right off the bat, even if it's a little bit of dissociation, it's still a circulatory issue. So normalizing the circulation so that she's getting enough blood to the brain and not having an imbalance in circulation in her body and the blood pressures are dropping for little short periods of time. Let's have her start with that, and then after a week, let's go from there. But yeah.
Um, I don't know if you cut out or not, Ann, but we did type it here in the chat, and so
Great. Thank
okay.
you.
Okay. Good.
The other question is about Shambuli.
Shimbu, which one?
shibumi. Yeah, is there an easy protocol?
Or what is it?
For the oil that we did the daily dose with.
Right.
Shibumi. Oh, okay.
You just said
Okay,
it
okay,
wasn't hitting
yeah.
my head right.
Shibumi, you know, depending on how you use it, but the best way to use it is the three brain pattern, which is it's probably easier just for me to say it to you.
Mhm.
So sex chakra, Mingmen, and then solar plexus, back heart, and then brain and crown.
Okay.
So she's posting this in the site. That was made primarily for utilizing the three brain pattern, and so I don't think I put that in the newsletter last night, just because in my mind that's just what it is, and so I forget to write things out. I forget you guys aren't in the conversation in my head. I forget. I forget that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then go ahead, Linda.
That's good.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thanks. Ann.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, if you just give us a little more time with our practice, we may very well be in your
Yeah, I
head.
know, huh? No joke.
We're working on it.
What am I thinking now?
Hey, my question has to
Mhm.
do with what is it that, or what's the effect of doing the three brain work on the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system? The reason I'm asking is because when I started with you back in August, I had taken the physical and spiritual aspects of the vagus nerve class.
Mhm.
And that's when I started doing the three brain work,
Mhm.
right? With the very first thing in there. And since that class and some of the other stuff on the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, I haven't really been doing a lot of those specific protocols. And
Mhm.
yet I've been doing a lot of three brain work and really noticing a huge difference in my
Yeah.
system.
I mean, I would say that the three brain work is both moving it up or down would have a very strong toning slash balancing effect, like toning each side of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and then balancing them out. So when you should be in sympathetic, you're in sympathetic, and when you're trying to switch over, and it would tone that so that you go into rest and repair mode. Um, I would say it's very substantial. Um, I think the thing that I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot for the last few days, actually, where as healers, we kind of think about this, but the intellect, when we have a problem, like say a physical problem, we go after the symptom. But if you take a step back and you look at it, like say from the point of view of Chinese medicine, they look at a bunch of symptoms and then they go, okay, there's these symptoms, but instead of chasing the symptom, we're going to treat like a particular system or a particular, set of meridians. And the West, we don't have that way of thinking. Even a lot of times when we think of things like holistically, we still are so influenced by that thought process of this is the symptom, I go after it directly. And here again, we're looking at something that the sympathetic and the parasympathetic parts of the nervous system, it's not that it's a particular symptom, but it's an area of function that really gets compromised quite substantially. But in the West, we also don't look at that very much. But just trying to target like sympathetic or parasympathetic activity, I think has an impact. But the bigger impact is kind of like these general processes that we do that set up the healing, where after we've done these processes, we can then go after a particular symptom and eradicate it, make it better or whatever. But it's because we've also done like a more holistic thing throughout the whole body. And if you think of the things that you do in your energy work, you know, you start off like prepping everything, and then you get in and you do something very specific. And the three brain component, you know, where I'm kind of breaking it up into like these sections, and one of them is clear line with the three brains. And I mean, it doesn't target specific symptoms the way we think about it in the West, but it makes things function so much better that you can eradicate the symptoms by improving the function of several areas. One of those areas being autonomic nervous system function, being sympathetic and parasympathetic. And so I would say for you to be able to have more intuitive thoughts and thinking, part of what has to happen from a physiological point of view is there has to be a substantial increase in tone in the parasympathetic or rest and repair mode. And to a certain extent, fight, flight, and rest and repair are relatively balanced, or harmonized is probably a better way of saying it. And so I would say my experience is it has a substantial impact, you know, very, very substantial. You know, going back to that vagus nerve class, you know, when I was writing it, I was like, we could just do the three brains and just call it that. But, you know, I still wanted to fold in other things. Just there's other things that you can do, but
Yeah.
also, you know, to go directly after the vagus nerve makes more sense sometimes to some people. So like I kind of still folded it in there so that if it was just too abstract, you still had something to anchor into it. You know what I mean? But if I boiled away and said, if I really wanted to work the vagus nerve and all of this, and I had one big takeaway, it would be three brains. Like it would just, bottom line, I'd just three brain it.
That was the bottom line of what you said, I
Yeah.
think, at the end of the class, which is what I took
Yeah.
to heart, was you said, if you're only going to do one thing, do the three
Three
brain
brain.
thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I started doing, was I just started
Yeah.
doing that every single day.
I mean,
And
there were
yeah.
so many angles that we talked about from that class.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was one of those ones where people might walk away and do like a piece of it, and any of it would stand strong. But for me, my money would be on three brains. Like
Yeah.
that's where I would go with it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. It's definitely been my experience that it's done a ton
Yeah.
for me. So thank you. Thank you.
I was just talking with somebody that I had taught the three brains to. Boy, it's probably been 2 years now, 2 years ago. And you know, somebody that had been trained in clairvoyance and trained in some other things, and you know, they kept making statements like, at first, like you kind of intellectually get it, but like you're like, she goes, but the more I practice it and the more I practice it, like I keep getting it and getting it. And she goes, now it's like it's almost like, yeah, ingrained, so that when I'm doing my normal everyday stuff, it just pops up like it's a thing. And she goes, you know, she goes, you explained it at the beginning, and she goes like, yeah, 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 yeah. You know, she just kind of gave me a bunch of yes. And she said, but you really don't get it until you're experiencing it. Like there's no amount of intellectual, you know, reading about it, talking about it. Like it really is just one of those things where you have to experience it. And you know, that idea in that class was I wanted people to experience a bunch of different things. So like something's going to resonate with them, you know, put all together, it produces a very good result. But most times people are going to go, this piece of the class I really liked. But I was really trying to push and emphasize that all these things are great, but really the three brain is is the gym in the whole weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, Barbara, then Carolyn.
Hey, Miss Barbara.
Hey there. I have an unusual pain in my left knee.
Mhm.
It's not the joint. It's like in the hollow below the kneecap. And I feel
Yep.
it when there's pressure on it, especially when the knee is
Yeah.
bent and it's exposed.
Yeah. So it's that
Sometimes
it's in the center or it's off to one of the sides.
just slightly left of center in that hollow spot.
But like when you go below the kneecap, you feel how there's that little like tendon there. Is it on the tendon or off to the side of the tendon?
I think it's just left of the tendon. But maybe it might be on the left edge of the tendon. Sometimes when there's pressure on it, almost feels like there's warm fluid moving when there's pressure on it.
Okay. Let's hope that it's the tendon. So potentially what you have there is either you have a bit of what they call patellar tendonitis, which is that big tendon below the knee. If not, you're starting to have a little bit of irritation in the meniscus, or maybe there's even been a little tiny tear or something. Doesn't mean anything, like it's very treatable, but meniscus issues become an issue when the tear is big and, it starts locking up the knee or starts causing a bunch of pain. So, I mean, it could just be a little micro tear there or somewhere where just like a nerve has gotten irritated. Still could be little fibers coming off of the patellar tendon. Given where it's at, I would say it's probably most likely a patellar tendon issue and not a meniscus issue. Meniscus issues usually happen a little bit farther out to the side. And so,
Yeah, I believe I do have a slight tear further out to the side. And
okay.
I
You
had a
do.
period where the knee would just sometimes give way. And if
Right.
I was careful and I eased into that and let everything relax, it would often not be a problem. And what I'm
Okay.
experiencing now, no pain when I walk, no pain going up downstairs. It's only when my knee is bent and there's pressure on it.
Okay. That probably is a patellar tendon issue. Okay. So let's have you do this. So you do have a history of that knee going out or the knee buckling a little bit under pressure?
A couple of times hasn't happened in a long time. And
Okay.
I'm kind of aware of it. And so I can usually prevent it if it feels like
Okay.
it's to do that.
So I'm going to show you a picture because when your knee is giving out, like buckling like that, it is actually a muscle that has a trigger point in it and that destabilizes the knee. And
Could these two things be related?
yes, yeah. So I'm gonna send this over to you.
Mhm.
Oh, I think
Also,
it's showing up, so it should work. Like it did something different to me that time.
the nerve that runs down the outer side of the thigh is also kind of tender.
Okay.
I don't know
So
if those two things are related or if that's more related.
well, they're both quadricep issues. So you have like the outer and the inner. So the one picture that I'm showing you, like
We'll have up in just a
yeah,
second.
we'll have it up in just a sec. We'll wait till she gets it up. Okay, so you see that muscle with the little X's there, and it looks like this little strip of muscle that comes down the inner part of on the inside of the knee, the kneecap.
The one in the center with the two X's?
Yes. So
Okay.
those two X's, when those parts are that's the trigger point spot. When those are activated, it makes that muscle like buckle, like it destabilizes the knee, and it puts pressure on the ACL, like that ligament that's in the middle of the knee.
Mhm.
And other muscles will have to start compensating. So you could have a little bit of a compensation issue that's happening here. So I'd like to do this in steps, right? But let's go through and just unwind some of the tension in both the inner part of the upper thigh and the outer part. So let's just have you treat the whole front side from side to side. And let's have you use like pepper or ginger or helichrysum or even marjoram. Did I say ginger? Ginger.
Yeah, pepper,
helichrysum.
ginger, helichrysum.
Yeah.
And this is
Even,
topical.
yeah, just topical. You can put it on with a little lotion or a little alcohol or massage oil or something. Or if you feel your skin can handle it, just put it on like neat. But like you're covering the whole leg, you know, the front from the hip down to the kneecap.
Okay.
Yeah. Do that a bit and see like
Like 2 or 3
where
times
those
a
two
day.
X's are, like if you can dig in with your fingers and just kind of like rub it back and forth like that, like get in and really kind of like, you know, push in on it. It doesn't have to be super uncomfortable, but it will be tender and it probably won't take very much pressure for it to be tender.
Mhm.
But if you go through and you do that and then treat both sides of the leg, in theory, that should diminish the knee issue because those muscles come around and they go around the kneecap and then they come down and form that patellar tendon like that. So that whole front side kind of comes to a point in and around the kneecap.
Okay.
Yeah. So anytime there's a kneecap issue, you want to go to the thigh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the piriformis is also tender. Is that related at all, or is that a separate thing?
Piriformis on your butt, like the butt cheek, like
Mhm.
the yeah.
Yeah.
It could be playing a role. Yeah. Um, I mean, you could put antispasmodics on that. I kind of like more things like peppermint or corn mint, that pain relief, neuropathic, things that are a little bit more minty, you know, just because they'll reduce the inflammation, they'll reduce the pain, but they're also still antispasmodic. And I think for that particular muscle, I find that I get a little bit better results from that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, keep me posted. If it doesn't feel like it's responding, then there's other things that we can do, but it's just a little bit more involved.
So 2 or 3 times a day topically?
If you could do
Well-
twice a day for like 3-4 days, and you know, maybe by the weekend we can chat again, I think that
Okay.
would be super, super good.
Thank you. I think I may torque that hip a little when I sleep. Is that
Yeah, that's
pretty good?
possible. And you know, sometimes it's possible you do it when you sleep, and sometimes like when the muscles like I don't know, like sometimes what happens, you lay on your side is you'll almost like hyper extend the leg, and it will put weird pressure on the hip and a ligament up in the hip
Mhm.
where it goes from the head of the femur, like that little mm, was it a trochanter? Like basically that little notch on the bone, and then over to the pelvis. Like sometimes that will get stretched and it will start to ache, and then it will start to cause the other surrounding tissues to like fire off to try to
Right.
protect that joint. And so you could be like just laying there normal, and just the position actually could even irritate the hip and the leg.
Okay. And treatment for that piece is just
I
positional
would
and paying
still
attention.
treat it the way that we're talking about.
Right.
Like, you know, it would still be like that. And if it really becomes exaggerated, then we try not to let the knee go past the midline when you're laying on your side. So that would mean propping it up with a pillow or something so that it stays from passing over your, you know, midline down your body.
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
As far as application goes, is neat the best application?
I'm actually a little bit of massage oil or lotion would be super good. Yeah. Sometimes for like something like that, it actually might even work a little better. You know, the use of a massage oil or lotion holds the oil in that area for longer periods of time. So you're treating more of the, here we're talking about the quadricep instead of the oil just hitting the bloodstream and going, you know, and into other places. Yeah.
And then go ahead, Carolyn.
Hey, Miss Carolyn.
Let's get you unmuted. You were unmuted and now go ahead and unmute again. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We can't hear you. I don't know if you're talking yet. So hopefully you can unmute yourself. We'll just, it doesn't want to. Okay. Huh. If you need, we can just, you can just type in and we'll just have a conversation that way with Greg. I don't know if it's easy to type your question though. We'll keep an eye on the chat here though for you.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And then we did have a question in chat as well, asking about the upcoming class. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Was the mechanics of light class, I think. Yeah. Can you tell us more about the mechanics of light class?
Which one is it?
It is the one in Birmingham in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So like how I was talking about with Linda about how like there's these different avenues. Basically, they're all just part of one big avenue, but like to break them down so you learn each piece, right? And then they kind of merge together. And so the idea is to really refine the skill set in each area before you start combining them so you don't overlook pieces. And you know, it takes on a life of its own. It's, you're already wired to do it, it's just not happening, you know, or it's happening very little. So the idea with the mechanics of light is how we interact with the light, how we bring light in, how we attract or repel the light, and how do we keep expanding the light. And really what it is it's a venture to move, being driven by your lower nature and the things that cause us our suffering, and shifting over to our higher nature, and not just cultivating, but being able to attract the things that um, help us to heal, help us to grow, to spiritually evolve, to have a good relationship. And it's kind of like what I was saying to Linda about, you know, stepping away from the symptom and looking at like, okay, there's this aspect in my physiology and my emotions and my mind are here in the energy body. Like, what are the mechanisms? What are the mechanisms doing? And what are the mechanisms producing? And what is the potential for these mechanisms to produce something? So what we're doing is we're looking at how light, we interact with light in our inner world, our inner interactions, but then also how are we manifesting this light in our surroundings? Like basically, how are we emanating light or expressing light um, in our normal everyday lives? And you could say that this gets called by different names in different situations. Like if you were trying to do a goal and improve prosperity or find a job, this aspect of the mechanics of light would be the ability to overcome obstacles. In the body, it would be your ability or your rate of healing. In the emotions, it would be your higher emotions versus your lower emotions. In the mind, it would be the cultivation of a quiet, organized mind versus a chaotic mind full of worry. Anticipation and anticipation or worry, like anticipating the potentials or the hypotheticals. And it's tied to this aspect of when the intellect lacks influence from the intuition or the intuitional part of the mind, it's very sure of itself and not very insightful, but very, very sure of itself. And even when you look at from the point of view of healing, when there's lack of intuition or not very much intuition, and a person goes at it from the point of intellect, they get so forceful about it. It actually uses force to produce a result and actually makes situations worse. It can make healing worse. It can make psychological healing worse. But even in prosperity or goals, sometimes some of the problems that we cause or generate ourselves. And, in Astara, we have this thing where we say we're surrounded by the white light. Only good comes to me. Only good goes from me. This aspect of only good coming to me and then going from me is tied to the refinement of the intellect, because the intellect is always learning from the past and its past experiences, and it's trying to problem solve or keep a state of comfort and trying not to have any pain. But in doing so, a lot of times it is the source of the pain, right? And so this idea is because we've said it in a bunch of classes. We were even saying this last weekend: whatever you feel intensely or you think repetitively becomes your reality. It is what you're bringing into materialization. Well, the intellect, when it's lacking intuition, tends to focus on the negative, because it's trying to offset the potential suffering or the lack of comfort in the future. And so in doing so, even when it looks into the environment, it looks for what are the threats, what are the potential triggers, what are the potential harms, right? And it gets so fixated on this that it's what we bring in, And so this idea of only good comes to me, only good goes for me, it's shifting the mind, right? It's not like changing the mind or changing the facts and the information. It's shifting and changing. For one, you could say it's like tied to like a oneness practice. Like you're sitting and you're trying to have oneness with the higher soul. That is you trying to experience the light. You're doing that through the activation of the pineal gland, right? Which is where the mental permanent seed is. And this is how we process information and interact with the higher soul. It's like the soul is the mainframe computer, and this pineal gland with the mental permanent seed is like the terminal. It's like how you access things in the mainframe computer, right? And then boom, it downloads it. So this is a point of light, and this point of light is how light comes into our body, how light and consciousness comes into our body. And so being surrounded by the pure white light means that this point of light is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and bigger, and then it's starting to surround you in particular areas, right? And then at some point it gets even bigger, and then it starts to impact how you interact with people. So you have your inner experience and then you have your outer experience, right? And so the idea is that you might come to a great resolution, you meditate, you prayed on something, you're like, oh, there's this situation at work. I'm at a place of peace. And in that moment, it is guided by the soul. You're surrounded by light. And then you go out into the world and you go into the office, and that ball of light really kind of goes away, and you're left to your lower nature and your intellect again, right? Your inner experience is not being expressed outwardly, right? And so this idea of being surrounded by light means that, like, in every situation, you're trying to cultivate like this ball of light, which just means you're connected to the soul. If you really boil down, what is disease, what is difficulty, what is obstacles, what is the issues that you're having in a relationship or work, you could boil it down is that it lacks soul energy, it lacks light, right? It goes into a repetitive pattern that's driven by the lower nature, right? And then it's self-sustaining, right? It protects itself, it seeks itself out, it doesn't want to break the pattern. The thing that breaks it is the essence, right? And so this idea is that even when you're healing, you might be good in other areas and you're surrounded by the light, and then you go, okay, but now my respiratory tract, it all shrinks. So this would be reflected in the aura, right? So we're taking the aura, the idea of the health rays, the idea of the inner aura, you're looking at all these mechanisms, and now we're not just saying, oh, there's these things that we identify. We're looking at, okay, there's the aura, but if we break down the aura, what are the mechanical pieces of the aura? And there's the structure, there's the function, and then there's the thing that it generates or it attracts. Then we look at the health rays and you go, what is going on with the health rays? What are the mechanics? What does it do? What does it attract? What are the moving pieces? What is the purpose of it? And so you're going much deeper into all of these mechanisms to constantly be surrounding yourself with light. In Buddhism, this is referred to as joy, like you're cultivating joy. But here we're just calling it the mechanics of light because it's a step. It's not the whole process, but it's a good stepping stone for something that we'll teach a little bit later in the month. Actually, I think it's the next weekend, where it is the Buddhist practice, even though we're doing it in a way that uses things from other traditions. It is the thing that helps to cultivate that inner joy that is not tied to anything in particular. It's not because you got a new car or a new job or somebody was nice to you. It's just like, so in a way you're becoming non-reactive, but we really don't have a way to correlate it to something in the West. Indigenous practices, they have things, and in the Buddhist practice, they have things. Even in certain Kabbalistic things, they do, but it's more than just breaking patterns. It's more than it's tied to being who you are to a much greater degree and shedding the past and the conditioning, but in ways that are not just wrestling with the past. You just kind of, how we've been talking about, you just change the frequency and then walk out of the situation. It's that to a greater degree. I don't think I did a very good job in explaining it, but at least, the best way for me to explain it is just to run you guys through it. But
And it's a free class, guys.
yeah, it's a
So,
free
yeah.
class. It's a freebie. We'll have a class list for you. I don't even know that we're going to have a bunch of oils. I think it's going to be actually a very small kit. Like I have to go back through and look at my notes, but yeah.
And then go ahead, Carolyn, then Barbara.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hi, Greg. We'll try this
Hey.
again.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm fine. A couple of observations that are really nice. I took the Uncle Bob class with you, the second one in
Yes.
whenever it was, January, February. And at the beginning of the weekend, I've had a tremor in my right hand for years. And after I had knee replacement surgery, it got worse. The anesthesia and I don't get along. But the tremor was totally gone at the end of the weekend.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, I know. I've got to go back, and I'm wondering if you know what particular part of it would have done that.
The part that jumps out at me, you remember that part that was about the heavy-hearted part?
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is that, this would just be my educated guess. But I think it's that just because like that heavy heart, it's not even so much about the emotions. It's that sometimes, because of injury or stress or, whatever, the energy of the body can get really like kind of heavy and like really dense.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't allow the chakras to function like they should, or the meridians, and when you go through and you do that practice, it just makes everything flow better, makes everything more fluid, and like you said, you had a surgery, you had reasons why the energy would thicken up and get heavier, and I guess it wouldn't be that.
Oh, wonderful. Great. I
Yeah.
will go back and do that again.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to
I mean,
redo it.
like, I think that was a 1 day or 2 day class. That was a 2 day class.
2 days.
And so, yeah, I mean, if you can't figure it out, we could have you do them in pieces so you kind of can correlate it. But, worst case scenario, you just have to do the whole class.
I know, and that's not that bad.
Yeah.
And the other one that I've been doing very consistently for about 6 weeks is, I can't remember the name of it, but the protocol is for reducing inflammation. And it's the one where you do the green healer, the blue healer, the violet healer, and the jaw minor chakra oils.
Oh, yeah.
And my gosh, it's reduced the inflammation in
Yeah.
my fingers, my arthritis. I mean, I have no pain.
Yeah. I think that was in one of the newsletters, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
That combination, where after the class this weekend, we're doing the Foundation to Mystical Healing, but a 2.0 version where we do more of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
Before
all right.
we were just doing like, oh, let's get green running through the body and blue. Yeah. This we're actually going to target and do protocols.
Oh, wow. Well, I do it every night before I go to bed, and it's
tremendous.
Yeah. Now I have a non-alcoholic fatty liver, and it's, I'm German. I've eaten a lot of fat in my lifetime. And so I'm wondering if there's any essential oils or protocols.
You have a couple choices, and it would actually just be taking it internal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So rosemary verbena would be one, or helichrysum.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, super easy. Yeah.
And what, a couple of drops?
Like 2 or 3 drops in water, but daily.
Okay, once a day?
Yeah, I maybe start off once a day, and then after a week you go twice a day. Just let your body acclimate to it. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's easy. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
All right.
And then go ahead, Barbara, then Laura.
Hey, Miss Barbara.
Hey there. This is a follow-up to the comments about the joy piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared with Samantha and probably you that I got really giddy during the class this weekend.
Yes.
And just the giggles. And that joyous state lasted through yesterday, and I think I'm still feeling it.
Nice.
And yes, very nice. And I have also noticed these mini bouts of irritation. And it almost feels like the more stuff I clean out, the faster I notice when I'm agitated. And I don't know if it's an awareness thing or there's more space for that to surface, or I'm just trying to understand.
I would say
Yourself.
probably a little bit of both. Like it's more definitely probably more space for it to surface, but you start to have such a differentiation that it starts to become easier to also be aware of it. Like, oh, I'm a little agitated right here, a little irritated, you know. Because both can exist. Like both, you can be super happy, but still have a little bit of agitation there, and when something, like settles down or evens out, you might be a little bit more aware of it. But I would say as time goes by, that agitation or that agitated part will probably diminish even more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't last long. It just comes
No.
on in a flash, and it's like, where did
Yeah.
this come from?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I
So
just was trying to understand it.
part of the other is that like the Kundalini is moving up a little bit higher, a little bit stronger because of the practice that we just did. And sometimes it's just throwing a little fertilizer on something that might potentially just be there, but like a little dormant, So it's what's feeding the joy part, but it also feeds the not so joyful part. And so, like you said, it passes, but if it stops passing or slows down, but like the use of the Melissa and things like that, it just usually cleans all that up.
Okay. It's interesting you should mention Kundalini because
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. And this morning, in that space, not quite up and ready and out, and still a little bit expansive and kind of in this oneness meditation. And it
Mhm.
felt like all this warm energy starting to move up the spine.
Oh, nice.
And I assumed that was Kundalini, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
And it didn't connect it to what we had done in class this weekend. It just seemed odd that it would happen when I hadn't set an intention to it. I wasn't doing a particular practice. I was just kind of in this expanded state.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah, that's kind of normal. Yeah.
okay.
Like it might not happen in the moment, but you'll be up like getting groceries out of your car and you'll feel like a thing go up your spine. That's when it happened. Yeah.
Okay, so it can
Yeah, it
be
can
mean
happen just
okay.
no particular rhyme or reason. You put it in motion prior, but sometimes it just takes a little while to cook.
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Good for you, by the way.
And go ahead, Laura.
Hey, Miss Laura.
Hi, Greg.
Mhm.
I grew up in a Protestant church and
Mhm.
learned about prayer through that.
Mhm.
But what I learned doesn't always feel good to me. Do
Sure.
you have any, and I find myself rambling in prayer. Do you have anything that you could talk about with prayer?
Sure. Like,
Thank you.
well, I would say there's different kinds of prayer, but maybe we could go back and forth with this and we'll explore it in that way. Um, so you know, I think that to look at prayer as like there's levels or stages of prayer. And a lot of times what you're doing is you're trying to become conductive to an aspect of divinity that you're already swimming in, but we don't really like our going back to the intellect gets in the way. The mind, our conditioning, the past experiences, our opinions, what people have said, and you can go on and on about it. And so I think there is an important component, depending on where the person's at, where you have a very structured prayer, where you go like a Lord's Prayer, for example, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's energetically doing something to your energy body that is very, very specific, right? Then you have prayers that are more coming from the heart and are more about like what you're feeling and an inspiration rather than just like saying and doing like a regimented like prayer. And I think that that is also very good and very necessary, where you're, stating something, praying for something, because, even at first, you're probably like, going through the experiences as you grew up, like, hey, at first you're asking for things and then thank you for the blessings. And then after a while, it just becomes not even about gratitude or things that are going on in your life. It's just about connection or communing, you know. But for the people where they're asking for something, I think that's important too. Like, sometimes the situation helps them to step out of themselves. And really what the prayer is, no matter what you're doing, is you're stepping out of yourself. You're not just focused on you, you're stepping out, that there's things beyond your knowledge and beyond your awareness that are affecting you, and you're like acknowledging that and trying to tap in these positive things, right? And so the idea of having like a little bit more of a spontaneous prayer, I mean, I think that also serves a purpose. And that it's rambling or something, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's fine. The more important part is that it's an expression that's coming, from the heart, or because of like a heart connection. And then I would say the even deeper is just to sit and not even really using words, but your attention or your awareness is on the deity or the practice or the teachings or the teacher, or just the body of work, whatever it is you're trying to tap into. And you're not really using words, but it's almost like you're just sitting, how like you would when you're watching the sun, you're just sitting and experiencing. And I think that that also is, it might not be for everybody, but when the mind has started to quiet down, I find it to be a deeper level of connection. And you really are approaching that with not having an agenda. Like you're just sitting with your awareness on that being, or that set of teachings or whatever it is, and just experiencing what that is. And I think that this is important for a lot of different reasons, but the one that stands out for me is, if we go back to the aspect of the three brains and we look at the aspect of the instinctive responses, we talk about like how, okay, this is how we interact with the environment, and this is how you socially interact, and when you feel pain, this is tied to your instinctive responses, and the things that you're attracted to, and the things that you're repelled from, and the things that you want to connect to and you don't connect to. This is all tied to the instinctive responses. But on an even deeper level, in Kabbalistic teachings, this is referred to, the center is associated with true ideas. And true ideas, you could say it like a couple of different ways, but if you really boil it down, one of the things that you're doing is you're looking at things in the environment that like inspire you or move you, and then you kind of start to duplicate it. And so if you look at the idea of a devotional practice, like you're connected to Christ, or you're connected to Buddha, or you're connected to whoever, right? Let's say Christ right now. So you're connected to Christ. So then you go, okay, how does Christ behave? How does Christ act? What are Christ's teachings? Like, you start trying to duplicate the example that's being set by the Christ. If you're Buddhist, then it would be the Buddha. If it's, whatever it is, you're recognizing that is something that inspires you, moves you, touches you, something, and you go, I want to duplicate that to bring that in. Because remember, the sex chakra, which is the root brain, is tied to physical creativity. So you're looking in things in your environment and you go, I want to bring that into my life. Like whatever that is, I want to bring it into my life. Right. I might not even know what it is. Like I have an intellectual understanding, which is this, but I want to experience this and my mind can't grasp it. So I want to bring it in. So if you think about the negative side of this is when we have patterns in our life that we go, this person's a jerk. I'm breaking up with them, I'm divorcing them, I'm whatever. Can't stand it anymore. And then you move to another state, you change the way you dress, you change the way that you interact with people. You find a person that has like on paper looks like they have a completely different personality. And then a little bit of time goes by and same issues are there, right? So that reason why those same issues come up is that this aspect of the instinctual responses is like, okay, we've duplicated this. Now here we're going to duplicate this again. Okay, we're moving across the country. We're living in a different place. We have all new circle of friends. We dress different. We speak a different language. And here I am a couple of years later back at the same point. It's because that center is still trying to duplicate that thing that you identified with so long ago, right? Like you might have identified with it when you were 8, like, and then you just go, yep, let's just do this the rest of the life, right? So this idea of like undoing conditioning, that's about like undoing these kinds of things. But when we look at it from the point of view of prayer, in that part where you're sitting quiet and just experiencing, like you're just meditating on the Christ or just observing the Christ or the Buddha or Rama, whatever being that it is, it's almost like you're setting aside those old things that caused you the suffering and you're going, this is what I want to bring in. This is the thing that I want to tap into. This is what, even if I experience it just for a little bit, I want to integrate this into my life, a little bit more than what it is, right? Then you take the idea of the materialization breath, right? So the materialization breath, honestly, I think this is like super fascinating because this is even going to be tied, even when we're talking about, you could say this is all tied to the mechanics of light class because it's just a different way of talking about the things that we're going to approach in that setting. And the materialization breath really shifts you from intellect into intuition, kind of whether you like it or not, right? Because again, intellect is always going from what it knows from the past and what it's learned, what it's experienced, what it has studied, what it has memorized, like all these things, right?
And
then
Lama
you have-
Yoga does the same thing, right? As
Yes,
far as
Lama
the,
Yoga would do a version of it. Yeah, like I mean,
okay,
all the things that we're doing address all of this stuff, right?
okay.
And so all of it, but the difference between Lama Yoga and the materialization breath is there's a little bit more of a physicalizing outside of yourself with the materialization breath, not so much with Lama Yoga. So really that is the big difference. They do a lot of similar things, but because of the throat lock, it goes from being inner to outer, right? And so in this, you're setting a goal that's outside of yourself, but you're not like defining it where you're writing down 20 things about it. You're just going, okay, I'm visualizing this. I want to, I don't know, you want to do something, right? So
Give me
then
an
you're
example, please.
like, say you're like, you know what, I want to win the pie baking contest, whatever, just it doesn't matter what it is. It's just,
Okay,
so like here we'll say pie baking contest because we just saw that on a show that we watched the other night. So
so a Christ teaching, give me something.
right.
Just
So but even with that, you could
forgiveness.
say, okay, you could say with a Christ teaching, you could say take one of the commandments, like uh, let's say, what would be a good one? Okay, say I'm not going to use the Lord's name in vain, right? So you go, but I like my swear words. Like, I don't want to use it's not really about cussing. It's about using holy names casually, but we'll just say, like, I was raised that you don't cuss. That's what that meant. It's not accurate, but it's what they taught us, right? So you go, but every time I'm out, I cuss like a sailor, right? And so then you start going, okay, I'm going to do the materialization breath, and then I'm going to focus on I'm visualizing myself in a place where I'm not using swear words anymore, whatever it is. Okay. So you do the materialization breath, and at first you reflect on, you're like, oh God, I do this, I do that, I do this happens, that happens. And if you remember like what happens in the materialization class, we do it a few times, and then I go, okay, when you visit it, how's it seem? And it's like it morphed into something, it turned into something. I can't touch it anymore. Like I lost sight of it, like all these different things people say. But what's happening is you're shifting out of intellect and you're shifting into intuition, right? So here, intuition is, for one, intellect is very slow. It accumulates information slowly. It makes decisions very slowly, and when it adjusts and adapts, it has to come up with a hypothesis and try it out, and did this work? Did this not work? Where intuition just looks at it and go, oh, let's just not do that anymore. Like, and you just start making quick decisions, and you start adjusting and adapting and working your way out of it, right? And so in this, if you think of what is happening in the materialization process, a lot of times when we say, this is the goal, right? I want to stop swearing. So then you start wrestling with yourself, and you start trying to repress, and you start trying to do this, and you start trying to do that. Like, I need to be careful about what I say. I need to be careful what I say around these people. I need to not do this. When I think something negative, I need to not say the F word or this or that, or, whatever it is, right? So you start grinding all that. That is the intellect trying to make that goal happen. And soon as something challenges that that strategy of trying to make it happen, that's where lower emotions come out. That's where we get a little bit aggressive. That's where we get upset. That's where we get stressed out. That's where we get traumatized when it doesn't work out or somebody doesn't support it, whatever it is. We get caught up in the process to the goal. We lost sight of the goal, right? So intuition just looks at the goal and goes, oh, we need to get over there. We need to stop doing that. Let's just stop, right? Let's just focus on the goal, and whatever we need to do in the process to get to that, we're just going to do it, right? Where intellect goes, this is the strategy. When you get up in the morning, you're going to say 20 times, I'm not going to cuss. When you're around people, you're going to remind yourself every 3 minutes that you're not going to cuss. Every time you start to cuss, you pull a rubber band and snap your wrist. You're trying to do all these processes because the intellect gets caught up in like how you're going to get there, right? The intuition goes, we're going to get there, and whatever adjustments or sacrifice or adapting needs to happen to get there, it's going to happen, right? It's just going to happen. And so doing the materialization breath gets you out of your head and into the part of the mind that's tied to movement or motion. And so you focus on the goal, and then as you start to do it, most times what's happened is either the intellect has come up with a strategy that is going to cause you harm, or it's made it way more complicated than what it is. And we start getting really attached and invested in how it's going to go down rather than it's going to go down. Like the goal is, I just stop cussing. Like I just stop using profanity. But we get caught in the steps of how we're going to get there. Intuition just says, let's just make that happen. Let's just stop it, right? And the materialization breath is training you to approach situations from the point of view of intuition, and then intuition says, okay, intellect, this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to go down, this is, this is the thing that we're going to build and maintain, right? And so I find that you know I'm just going to say it from my point of view. I've been around a bunch of people who, be it either religious or spiritual, let's just say they think they're all that. And in some arenas, they are. And then in some arenas, when they get around just normal people, they're kind of not nice people. You know what I mean? Like they do really not so nice things. But the reason that they do that is they're stuck in intellect. They're stuck in that idea of like, well, I've done good, so this person is just opposing me, so of course I can be obnoxious, and of course I can cuss, and of course I could cut them down to the bone, and of course I can do like all these things because they're threatening my little strategy of all the good things that I have in my head and how I'm playing it out. And intuition just intuition is just movement. It is that expansion of light. It is that moving to like a brighter thing. And I think bottom line is whenever we're focused on ourselves, we can't see the light. When we think of other people, we see outside of ourselves, and that's when it becomes easier and easier to see the light. And if you look at the mechanics of prayer, whatever version of it that you're trying to do, you're trying to get yourself to see outside of yourself, like bottom line. So if that is a structured prayer that works for you, awesome. If that is a spontaneous prayer where you sit and you pray about all the different people in your life and you're coming from the heart and it just sounds like a word stew, but for you it has something, I still think that's good. If you sit and just stare at a picture or a statue or close your eyes and contemplate the Christ or whatever, good for you. If it's the materialization breath, that also is good for you. And then I'd say one step past the materialization breath is that part where it kind of happens in the materialization breath. Like as you're going through and you're trying to achieve your goals, you're like, okay, let's just make this happen, right? Let's stop the cussing. And then you start going through the steps and you go, well, if we're gonna stop the cussing, maybe there's certain conversations I need to avoid, or maybe there are certain topics I need to avoid, or maybe I don't have to express my opinion about everything, or, whatever it is. Maybe I need to stop when other people start doing it. I need to not join in, whatever it is. Even that is kind of like an offering up. So if you get past like the deeper level of the materialization breath, you're trying to see something outside of yourself. And really what happens over a period of time is those things that really don't serve us, but we're like attached to them, or we're on autopilot when it comes to it, like certain parts of our personality and certain behaviors, might even be things that we brought in from our family or whatever. We start going, it's not even that I want to try to make it go away. I'm just kind of done with this. And you almost like offer it up like as an offering. You could say to the soul, you could say to Christ, you could say to the Buddha, you could say to whatever, but you're just offering it up so that there can be a deeper connection to something higher or greater than you, rather than always defending and latching on to those lower parts that make you comfortable, but they're repetitive, right? And so bottom line, I would say if you're really wanting to tap into the spirit of prayer, it's really about stepping outside of yourself. Really, like tapping into something bigger than you, greater than you, where it's not that you're just wanting something to happen, but you're acknowledging that there's a lot more than just this, or what's in my head, or what I'm feeling, or what happens to me every day. There's something much greater than this. There's a bigger potential than just what's happening in my normal everyday life. Any version of that will get you there, but different personalities, different ways of processing, people's minds are in different places, and different parts of the mind are activated, so the minds process information somewhat differently. And so there's not like one universal, like this is the way, but so any of them work. And when I visit and do things with people in their different traditions, I usually pray that the way that they do, like however they do it, I sit down and I just do it their way. And I'm like, hey, I'm always game for another version of something. But bottom line, you're just trying to step out of being so fixated on yourself. Even if it's only for 5 minutes a day, that's still better than no minutes. And over a period of time, it will change how you interact with the people and the environment, but it starts changing you, where things that you thought were important, or things that you were defending, or things that you were um, like managing or protecting, whatever it is, you just realize I don't even care about that. Like, I don't even know why I was doing it. It almost is this, like, how the body tries to stay alive. These things try to stay alive, even though they might not be serving us, even though they're not even something that a lot of times we choose. It's just they happen to be there. We identify with it, and then we start, managing it, protecting it. And so on some level, prayer starts to be a thing where those parts that don't really serve you anymore, or are not of the light, they just start falling off or dying away. And eventually it's what they mean by being born again. Almost every tradition has some version of that, but it's really the falling away of the lower nature and being more connected, or identifying with the higher nature. But it's not something we do naturally. The body naturally resists the higher soul. The emotions and the mind do not. It's just the body. And so a lot of times what we're doing is we're wrestling our physiology. But it's so dense, it has such an impact that it affects our emotions or our mind. And over a period of time, it's almost like we forget who we were or who we are. And prayer just allows us to visit that, even if it's just for a few moments. But after a while, it's like it reaches a tipping point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have favorite oils or
For
incenses?
prayers, yeah.
Yeah,
I like aloes, I like tuberose. Um, um,
rose?
yeah, rose I like. Uh, aloes. Cistus. I like cistus sometimes. And actually one that we use all the time, galbanum. I like to use galbanum for prayer work. Frankincense and myrrh can be very good. Poplar. Love me
What was
some
the last
poplar.
one?
Poplar.
Pop-
Very
Okay.
well. And yeah, I can't really think of anything else.
I figured your list would be like.
It's pretty long, but I have like a handful that are my go-to things. Yeah. I'll tell you, the one that's kind of becoming my favorite right now is acacia would be another one. But one of the ones that's turning into be one of our little favorites around here is the astral projection. Yeah. I think you've had like what, four baths with it now? 3 or 4 baths? Yeah.
And the incense are
And
amazing.
yeah, we made incense and like it's just, because it's got acacia and it's got benzoin in it, and I think it's got aloes, and it's got one other thing I can't remember. Aloes,
Gingerly?
acacia, gingerly. Yeah, gingerly, acacia, aloes. Yeah. So yeah, and you could do materialization breath, or sometimes you just inhale it and yeah, just sit in that time for a little bit. Honestly, any of the precious oils, like as I say that, narcissus could work, osmanthus could work. What are some other like of the fancier ones?
Oh, yeah.
The lotuses, um,
I mean, Sacred Blue even.
sacred blue, assemblage point,
Mm.
apostle Johola's balm,
Monks anointing.
monk's anointing oil, mana would be a really good one. Even, as weird as this sounds, even cinnamon is good for prayer. Cinnamon's very activating to the heart and helps to integrate things, helps to express it outwards. I mean, you could very easily do it with cinnamon as well.
Melon.
Melon would work. Yeah.
Could
cheddar-
you do it
cheddar
as
red?
incense instead
Sure.
of?
Yeah, incense, sandalwood. Palo Santo, in a way, I would say that's more healing, but that like in a healing ceremony, but yeah.
What about cedar? You were mentioning
Yeah,
cedar.
cedar I would do in prayer work. Like you do that a lot of times. You use cedar a lot of times. Various traditions will use it before you go into ceremony. And it's because it shifts the state of the body, which we're going to be talking about on the weekend, like the state. But it just means the state of the body is moving more towards being more organized rather than chaotic, like more driven by the higher nature rather than being driven by the lower nature. Yeah, cedar is very good for that.
Any
Cedar,
particular cedar that,
they all work. Himalayan, Japanese, and Taiwanese work the best, but they all work. They all work really well, actually. And then there's another one. It's in the kit this weekend, but I don't even know that it's on the site. There's an evergreen called Hinoki.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hinoki also works. It'll be in your guys' kit this weekend. It smells very similar to cedar. And then it's a Japanese tree. And then shiso. There's some oils that aren't on the site, but we don't have to go through those. They're usually
you get
just
plenty.
yeah, like they're just in blends and stuff, but yeah, shiso would be another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, shiso, usually shiso, it's again another kind of tree. I usually just use that for cancers and things. Like yeah.
Well, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Did that kind of scratch that itch for you a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I may have questions, but
And this can
and
be
I-
an ongoing conversation over the next several months. Like, take it, process it, and then let's talk about it again.
and I think that, I include the materialization breath quite frequently, or Lama yoga.
Yes,
And
me too.
I include the surrounded by light, only good comes to me, only
Mhm.
good comes to me. There are other things that I include, but this was really good information.
The thing, like if because
Maybe I was
like,
being too judgmental,
right. So like I'd say over the next 30 days, that idea of surrounded by the white light, only good comes, only good goes. There'll be a much clearer practice to do with all of that. And if you take a little piece of it and do it every day, it's like how we were talking about it like a couple weekends ago, where if you do that within a few months, you'll notice my life is changing kind of like quickly. Like it's like you're breaking out of like old repetitive patterns, and you're setting these new patterns, and things just aren't as complicated or heavy or as irritating or as annoying. It doesn't mean that problems still don't happen, but you notice that you just start flowing through things a little bit easier. Like life changes like kind of quickly. Like it really is kind of amazing. And so between next weekend and then the weekend where we do the mechanics of light, by the time we get done with that weekend, you will have a practice to do for being surrounded by light.
Well, this was great. Anytime you've got any suggestions, I love hearing this
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Miss Christina.
Let's try again. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hey. How's your little center doing?
It's doing well. Thank you
Good.
so much.
Good.
I'm having a lot of activities and events coming, so that's keeping me busy.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So I just have a quick question about pranic healing spray. So we've been taught to do tea tree and lavender with
Sure.
alcohol or vodka. And I was wondering if I could spruce it up a bit with some of your oils, like specifically for anointing. So I know like Palo Santo, I remember you said in classes in
Yeah,
the past.
Palo Santo. The issue that if you're constantly spraying Palo Santo on, it's never bothered me, but I've had some healers do that before, and it started making their emotions come up. Like it depends on how many healings you're doing, but just because Palo Santo is about bringing stuff up, and then it eventually clears, but it hasn't happened a lot, but I have seen it happen before. And so the thing that I would say is, so MCKS said lavender and tea tree here in South America. He said sage, lavender and sage. So sage gets used in other parts of the world, like how we use tea tree. So that's always a possibility, but hyssop works really super well. Like I would say out of everything, I usually either use hyssop or I like to use the Moses blend, just because it's hyssop and it's a couple different kinds of cedar. I just said those cedars are the ones that are help to improve the state of the body. And so the hyssop is very cleansing. It helps reduce the potential for you to absorb negativity, both from the environment and from other people. It helps to activate the heart and the crown. And yeah, I think that's good for that. Cedar fortifies the state of the body. It mixes the energy between the heart and the crown, and helps the body to stay more organized. Like basically organizing means it's moving towards light or embracing light and moving away from darkness or blockages. And so that combination of the Moses, or basically hyssop and cedar, is a very good combination to do for spraying your hands, for spraying yourself down, taking a salt bath afterwards. It does a lot of different things, very, very quickly. And so I would lean on that. If you wanted to add a couple other things, like if you wanted to do Palo Santo, I'd say mix Palo Santo with a bit of just with a tea tree, like some Palo Santo and tea tree. But you could also do, standard eucalyptus is more of an orange kind of prana, at least it starts off orange. And then it changes colors as time goes by. But eucalyptus radiata and eucalyptus polybroct are more of a deeper green kind of prana. But if you wanted to spice it up a little bit, Eucalyptus smithy is actually a very good choice as well. And even though it's a eucalyptus, it's actually a very strong violet prana. And it starts off violet, goes green, then goes deeper violet, and then green, and then an even deeper violet. And so I would say between the hyssop and the cedar or eucalyptus smithy, super good choices. For a while, I used camphor. I thought camphor worked pretty good. But I would say my kind of go-to thing is usually hyssop or Moses blend.
Would you put the hyssop or Moses blend with the lavender and tea tree?
No, I do them by himself.
Just by himself?
Yeah. If you wanted to add something to lavender and tea tree, do the eucalyptus smithy. Do eucalyptus smithy and do sage. Yeah, sage.
So lavender, tea tree, and sage.
Lavender, tea tree, and sage, or lavender, tea tree, sage with the eucalyptus smithy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And you kind of already just answered this,
Mhm.
but would you blend them all together or could you?
Yeah, you could use them separately, or those would all be compatible and blend well with each other. So you could do that. Yeah, sure.
But those would be the ones to blend together, not
Those
the others.
Right. I would do the ones we just said.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you repeat what you said about cedar? Not here, but when you were talking about the prayer part, what you
Oh boy, what did I say?
just talk about what cedar does.
Oh, okay. So cedar helps to fortify the state of the body. It helps move the state of the body into what we would call, from a physiological point of view, you're going into more of the anabolic state, which is where your body regenerates and rejuvenates and resets itself. If your body's not in that, then it's degenerating. So from the point of view of energetics, cedar helps to fortify the body, to help facilitate shifts and changes. It mixes the energy of the heart and the crown, which means it mixes the energy of your higher soul and the incarnated soul, right? It mixes these two. And then there was one other point that I made, I can't remember what it is. Mixed, fortifies. I don't know. Like I'm blanking right now. Mixes, fortifies. I don't know. I can't remember. I just, my mind totally went blank. But there you go.
You said it prepares the body.
Yeah, it prepares the body for spiritual energy because you're establishing more order in the body. And so more order means that something can come in, expand, shift, and change. Your body can't shift or change or even have light come in when it's chaotic. Like though it will just naturally repel out, right? And so you'll have an experience and then the experience leaves you pretty quick, right? If you have like this deep spiritual experience and you have the ability to hold on to it, it's because your body is in a state of order that it can hold on to that essence or that light to a much higher degree. So that's what you burn before you go into certain kinds of ceremonies, is you do that so that whatever light comes in and you're done and you walk out, that you hold some of that light, that you carry it through in your normal everyday life. Yeah. Yeah. If you think about it, it's even kind of the idea with spruces and firs with Christmas. Very similar idea. The activation of the heart and the crown, and then the ability to hold on to those things as you go into the new year.
And just so you know, the thing you were talking about that you couldn't remember, it was about the preparation of the body.
Oh, preparation of the body. Yeah.
And then go ahead, Letty.
Hey, Miss Letty.
Greg,
No,
hi, Sam.
let you
Sorry,
know, I made a joke to everybody about, oh, you weren't involved in that conversation in my head. Um, you figure out that conversation in my head all the time with those booklets, and so thank you.
well, so no, sometimes I say I'm like, I'm confused. I said, but
Yeah, you're confused, but you usually like figure it out and go, this is what I think he meant. You
Yeah.
do that every time.
Greg, so I have a question. Girl from work, she's a coworker.
Mhm.
I think she's late 20s. I think she's been trying to get pregnant and she's like losing her babies over and over. Like she's having miscarriages.
Yeah.
Is there anything for that?
How many miscarriages do you know?
The number I don't know, but
Like three or four.
I want to say at least that I know of two. There might be more,
Yeah.
but she's very young, so I'm kind of like, she's a runner, so she's healthy. She's really healthy. She eats
Do we know
well.
anything about her health? Like, does she have endometriosis?
I don't know that.
Yeah, it's probably not a thing where you want to walk up to somebody and go, excuse me, do you have endometriosis?
Yeah. I just wondered if
Um,
there was a way to help or something. I
yeah,
put
I mean, yes, there are things that can be done, but I mean, sometimes it could be that also the baby, the fetus wasn't going to survive the whole pregnancy. And so sometimes it's more than just that she's having a miscarriage. It's like something's happening with the genetics that's not allowing for a proper pregnancy. Like, the body is of the baby, something's off. And so, I mean, it also could be that like maybe your body's toxic or, but my guess, like you said, she's exercising, she's doing all those things. I mean, if she's trying to get pregnant, I would imagine she's been going to the doctor about it, so they've checked for endometriosis, but let's do this if she's willing to do this. Do tarragon in a base of tumanu oil applied to the area below the navel, like below the navel. And we were having a discussion last night, like men, the waistline is the top of the hips, like where your underwear would hit. And then women, it's up by the navel. So I don't know what to call that. You call that the underwear line, or what do you call that?
We call it the hips.
Okay. So at above the hips, like right, go all the way down as low as you can on the pelvis, in and around the hips, whatever.
So from like the navel down type of
Navel
thing?
down. Yeah. Yeah.
Tamanu with that.
Tamano with
Sure.
tarragon, about 30 drops per ounce of tamanu of the tarragon. And that will do a lot of things for the pelvis. It will help reduce spasms, and tension in the pelvic floor and in some of the smooth muscle of the reproductive tract. And if there is like inflammations and things down there, it will clean it up. And so that's where I would start. I mean, there's healings and stuff that could be done, but you basically would go through and clean up the sex chakra, the navel, and the perineum. If you're good at visualizing, you can go directly to like the uterus itself, but just hit the chakras.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, she's getting pregnant, so that I mean that I mean, because sometimes like the mucus can get real thick in the pelvis, and like the sperm can penetrate, and like there's a whole set of things that like you gotta do to try to get them to the point of getting pregnant, but that she's losing a baby. Um, you could clean those areas up, but I would start with this, and then from there, if she's still having a hard time, then we start looking at what the reasons are. Because the issue is that might not be her issue, it might be the husband's issue. Like there might be something going on with the sperm or the sperm count where it's not, you know. So it's complicated. Like the thing with like pregnancies, you just start treating, and potentially, you know things that you can go through and treat, but you're never sure like how the person's going to respond, because it's the reproductive tract, but it's also still tied to endocrine function. And so we don't know what's going on with the endocrine system, with hormones, but that place with the tarragon, very good, solid place to start.
Okay. I
We
do,
could throw a bunch of things at her, but like that's not gonna be sustainable. You gotta just give her one thing, see if it helps.
now I do recall her saying one time that she was kind of like just sending messages in the group chat, like if anybody had some hot tea because she was having some cramps.
Some
So,
krebs.
mhm,
She is having krebs.
mhm,
Yeah. I think the tarragon is probably going to help more than we even think right now.
okay. I remember,
Yeah.
like I just like randomly thought about that. I said, you know what? She was one time
Yeah.
because she does have something, but I don't really know exactly what. Because this is her
Yeah.
first year there with us.
Yeah.
Like getting to know each other or whatever. But
I would say something's probably up. Like I don't know what it is, but like my sense is like going down the hole with tarragon is a pretty solid choice. It will make her feel better for one, but it should increase the potential opportunity. But so she runs. Does she do anything else? Like exercise wise?
just runs that I know of, just running.
Okay.
I don't think she does anything else that I know of.
Okay.
She's pretty fit. She runs like a lot of miles. I think in the morning before work.
And like no back problems or anything like that that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's just do the tarragon.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much, Greg.
You're so welcome. Keep me posted on that.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
And go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Christina.
Hey, it's Greg, just some follow-up questions. When you said sage earlier, can we do clary sage or any other?
No, clary sage doesn't quite do it like that. Clary sage is good for other things, but like it's just like standard sage, like sage, Spanish sage,
Spanish, okay.
yeah,
Because I was
Spanish.
looking at the list that I have from your class and there's like heritage sage and Dalmatian sage and.
Yeah, Dalmatian, Heritage, Triloba, Australian, all of those will work. Yeah.
Okay,
Clary sage actually isn't a true sage. And so it doesn't quite like it's similar, but it doesn't have all the properties. So the regular sage is the one you're looking for. Any of the other sages, except for the couple of clary sages we have on
okay. And then can you talk a little bit about the esoteric properties of Eucalyptus smithy, if there's any?
Any of the eucalyptuses are very good for cleaning up the mind, like clearing up the mind, calming the mind, purifying the mind, helping the mind to organize. It doesn't have super crazy, massive, like esoteric properties to it, but it is very calming and soothing to mental faculties.
So in a way that would prepare the body
Mhm.
and the mind for
Sure. Yeah,
meditation or whatever it is that.
And there's something to be said, that there's things that can create like deep movement and shifts and things, and then there's times where you just want things to kind of stabilize and be like calm, right? The eucalyptus smithy is about just stabilizing things, cleaning up, and just let's just be calm, like just even sage kind of does that a bit, and so lavender would do it as well. Tea tree can make things move a bit, but the other ones, very, very calming. Calming and soothing.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed the lavender tea tree spray. So I
Mhm.
want to add stuff in it, not since I'm taking your classes, and spice it up a bit if I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, MCKS, like different areas, he would talk about different things. So sage was in like South America, and for a while we were even doing things with lang lang for a little bit.
Mm.
Definitely spikenard on the feet, but yeah, but tea tree was big here. Sage was big in other places.
Okay. And so right now, I know it's mixing things is probably an art more than art than a science, but right now I'm doing 15 drops of lavender and 15 drops of tea tree. So if I add stuff in there like sage or eucalyptus smithy, do I do 30 drops total or
I would just make everything even
even? Okay.
yeah, just make them even. All of these are middle notes, and so you don't have to really worry about like trying to like as far as pursuing a scent. Like you're getting good energetics from it, but they're all middle notes, and so I would just leave them relatively um even. Like if you had something that was a real high note, like a flower of some sort, you might need to add a bunch more of that, or a heavy note like spikenard or vetiver or benzoin, Peru balsam are all like heavy notes, and so you would only add like a drop or two in the blend to anchor the rest of the oils.
Mhm.
But here, you're doing it for energetic reasons and not trying to produce a scent. Like if you're trying to produce a scent for a candle, for example, like you were talking about candles a while back, you would want to add a little bit of a heavier note within all of that, right? To like anchor the scent. Because like when you open up the bottle, part of what you're smelling is the molecules breaking down, right? So if you notice, like you open up a bottle of rose or jasmine, boom, it hits you. But then in 5 minutes, you go, I really don't smell it anymore, right? It's because it peaked. It came out really fast, but it peaked really fast. Then you have middle notes. So like all the ones that you just measured, they're all middle notes. So it might take a count of like 10 or 15 seconds, and then it comes out, but they last for a really long time, right? So they'll go from like maybe a count of 10, they'll start really starting to open up, and then they'll go to like maybe a count of 50 or 60, right? Where the flower comes out immediately, and by the count of 10, it's kind of done, right? Then you have a heavy note where it doesn't even really start to hit the nose properly and aromatically till maybe a count of 50 or 60. So what you do is you put a little bit of flower, a bunch of middle note, and then a little bit of a heavy note so that you get this full spectrum of a scent that will constantly kind of change, but that end note makes the middle and the higher notes last longer because they kind of fuse, and it makes it linger for longer periods of time. So a lot of times you'll notice like something smells good, but then like in a minute or two it changes. It's because it's evaporating, but because of a heavy note, it holds it in that space for a much longer period of time, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And if you are really wanting to dabble in that, one of the ways that we could like enhance that, like, because I know you're trying to make something for your bodega or
Uh-huh.
like you're experimenting, right? And so there is, I haven't had it for a long time, but there is an absolute of lavender that I could run down. And so you could use an absolute, which is a much heavier note, but it's still in the vein of lavender. Like, you know what I mean? Like you add benzoin in, and benzoin doesn't smell like lavender. So yes, it lengthens the scent, but it also changes it a little bit. So the goal is like sometimes when you use some of these, like they call them a fixative or a heavy note. So when you use the fixative, sometimes you try to get something that's really close to the scent profile when you're trying to blend by scent, right? You try to get something that's close to the scent profile so that as the other oils blossom, you don't change like their scent profile, right? Which a fixative can. And so there are things where there's absolutes of like Lang Lang and like I have a absolute of like helichrysum, and I don't, it's not even on the site, it's just I use that in certain blends because I don't want just helichrysum. I want that fixative note of helichrysum to anchor a particular scent. And then like say cistus, for example, I have 2 or 3 different kinds of absolutes of cistus, like different things. You're looking for properties, but you're also looking at the scent profile. And I mean, I do blend things like that sometimes, but most times I blend for the energy and then, visit the scent at the very end, or sometimes not at all. And but the whole idea of blending by scent, it can produce a very nice scent, but it doesn't always provide something that's going to produce a result, or that they're energetically or therapeutically produces a result. So there's this thing of like, which way are you going to lean with this? If you're just trying to like say a candle, for example, yes, you can want something cleansing, but you also want something pretty and something soothing. And so you might blend something more towards scent. But here you're talking about a spray bottle, and spraying your hands during the healing. I would just use workhorses for that. I wouldn't really worry about like the scent profile, right? Now, if you're doing like a stress spray that you're trying to sell in your bodega or like in like a new age bookstore, you probably want it to smell kind of like pretty, or something that's like, ooh, where somebody smells it, that's amazing. You can still hit both, but a lot of times people blend more for the scent rather than the function. And so it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. Like I have a friend that I haven't seen her for a long time, but she is an old school aromatherapist, but she wouldn't even call herself an aromatherapist. She would call herself a perfumer. And she would make these really nice smelling things. I mean, they were all genuine oils, and like we got the oils from the same places, and so she would make these really pretty things. They did nothing. Like, she mixed them in a way that produced this amazing scent. But if you looked at it from a therapeutic point of view or an energetic point of view, she was using things that almost like counteracted each other, but they produced this like great scent. And so she made beautiful smelling things, but you know how when you see something, like you see a picture, you go, that was amazing, and then 5 minutes later you can't remember it. It's like that. Oh, that smells amazing, but then nothing. Like when I smell either like a blend or even like a single oil, where I was like, that's amazing, that is on my mind for a while. Like I can't get it out of my brain. Like I got to keep putting it on, smelling it, taking a bath in it. It's doing something. And so, whatever you're trying to do, you're kind of walking the tightrope of what you're trying to do. And depending on the situation, you'll want to lean more one way or the other. Like for me, from time to time, I get approached by people who want to do something, have me do a retail line for them, or stick them in a series of stores or something. And it's like, I don't make my products to be like in that kind of setting. You have to almost gear products to be to the masses where it's just going to appeal to them with the scent. They're probably not going to use it very therapeutically to begin with. And so I I don't make things that way, you know, so I almost always turn those situations down. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a great appreciation for what you guys do behind the scenes. That's for sure.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting though, yeah. Like going down the rabbit hole and,
Yes.
you know,
And I'm learning a lot through the
yeah.
process, and it's
In the early days,
fascinating.
I did want to teach classes about blending, but I don't know how we would pull that off. I mean, I guess we could pull it off. The first couple of times I taught a class, I did teach some blending, but yeah, it's better to start with a small group of oils. I don't know if you ever saw that thing with what was it, the top 20 oils? What do you call that? The top 20 oils? Um, like in that, a lot of those oils are kind of somewhat compatible and things, and so not completely, but relatively. And so the first few times that I taught that class, I would teach people how to blend, and we talk about properties, and then I would sit there and have them make their own blend with 3 different oils. And they you know, they would get to choose. We'd talk about everything, and then we'd do that. And you know, it's interesting, but like if you're trying to use the oils to produce a result and you're dealing with the public, especially new people, you either want to have something already pre-done, ready to go blend wise, so that they don't have to figure it out, or you emphasize single oils so they get used to the qualities and properties of a single oil. Especially with aromatherapy, people will tend to only, I'm talking about the general public. I'm not talking about the students in the class and stuff, by the way. Like they'll be drawn to things that they like the smell of. And if they don't like the smell, they go, eh. They're not looking at it even there as a point of view of being therapeutic. They're just looking at it like a piece of candy. Like, that smells good. That doesn't. I don't like that. And then once they get to the point where it starts to be therapeutic, it's like even if you don't like the smell, you go, I don't know about this. And then I don't know, it's kind of growing on me. And then pretty soon you're like, this is amazing. You know, like the one for me with that was galbanum. First time I smelled galbanum, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this. And I didn't touch it for a while. And then I did it again. I was like, eh. And then I was like, God, you know, it's a good oil. Like, you know, I was like talking myself into it. And one day I just sat down and I was like, I'm just gonna play with it for a while. And within a week, I was like, this is my new best friend. Like, this is amazing. You know, but I wasn't drawn to it right off the bat. And you know, when you're coming at it from a therapeutic point of view, that you like the scent or don't like the scent is really not important. It's what the scent is doing. And the general public right off the bat, they're not there. You know, I'm not talking about the practitioners. I'm not talking about, you know, even people you've been working for a while, but I'm talking about like when you're just dealing with brand new, fresh people, they look at oils a little bit like candy. And, you know, our job is to walk them past the point of, yeah, it's more than just something that smells good. It does things. And then you start kind of unwinding the things that it does. You know, that's our job. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I will say this, you know, I've been doing holistic practices as a living for 35 years. That's a brick that just hit me in the head. God, I've been doing this forever. Um, out of everything, there would be people that would be into something, you know, energy healing, meditation, you know, physical manipulation, you know, talk therapy, whatever. There was always a group that like was into it, and then a group were like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think it does anything, you know, and they would push it away. You can take the most obnoxious, anti-holistic person that you know, and you go, hey, this eucalyptus or this hyssop is really amazing. And they're going, yeah, I don't know about that. That's all that weird aromatherapy stuff. And you go, yeah, but it also prevents colds and flus and whatever. And they're like, yeah. And then you stick it in front of your nose and you go, just smell it. They don't go, they go, like it breaks a barrier that almost every other modality doesn't. And even if it's not your primary thing, it's a way to break through to people when you're having a hard time getting through to somebody. You do it through scent. Words might not get it, ideas might not get it, the healing might not get it, the atmosphere might not get it. You stick a bottle in front of their nose, like the one that always cracks me up, because like I wish I would have taken a video, but I was walking in and it was me, the CEO of this company, and a bunch of retired military guys. I mean, even just the way I looked, I was getting dirty looks, and I was not dressed how I normally dress. I was dressed like they dress, but then I just had long hair and in a ponytail. It's still, they gave me a look of like, who's this hippie, right? And we had diffusers going in the room because these two sides were negotiating and they were fighting like cats and dogs. And so I put hyssop in there. I put it in a couple of different corners, and as soon as I walked in, they were like, "Oh, what is this stuff?" And I told the CEO, whatever you say, you just say it's to prevent colds and flus. That's it, nothing else. And so they'd come in and they'd like, what is this stuff? Like really sharp and short and just, and we'd go, it's just, to prevent colds and flus. It's cold and flu season. And they'd go, ugh. And then they'd go sit down, like every time, like every time. And I was like a room full of like retired like colonels and generals. Everybody was like, they weren't happy about it, but they were still breathing it in like nobody's business. And I was like, that's the power of scent right there. Like it got through to them when no matter what I would have said or done, or I had some study or something that I could present them, none of that would have like moved them at all. But throw something in front of their nose, they can't help but inhale.
That's what I love about the essential oils.
Yeah.
Yeah, good bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super good bridge. I
Mhm.
mean, it's a therapy that stands on its own. It doesn't hit everything, but like you said, it's a good bridge. It's a good way to augment other things. There's times where it can stand on its own, and then there's times, I mean, here even in the study groups, I'll go, there's not an oil that works good for that, but there's some herbs, right? It has limitations, but at the same time, it also has things that it does that are amazing. So, you kind of know what it does and know what it can't do, and you go from there.
Thank you so much.
You're
Great.
so welcome. Let me know how your experimenting is going.
I will. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And great questions tonight, guys.
Yeah, we still have a little bit of time. Let's do what was the class we did this last weekend? Can't remember.
Body mapping in the three brains.
Body map. So let's have you pull out yeah, this is the thing we were doing over the weekend or over, yeah. So let's have you pull out, if you have that blend APR, if you don't, helichrysum, wintergreen, impapo, ginger lily, acacia, Eucalyptus smithy. Let's see, like at
Okay.
that. Let's see what people have. Think we're good?
I think we're good.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're breaking down thought forms that are projected at us from other people, be it that they're negative or just all used up and we've outgrown them. But this is more about things we've absorbed from other people rather than things that we've self-generated, right? So we're utilizing these oils to break up what we call the energy of thought, which is not necessarily a thought form. It's just like when people think something, but it's projected at us, but it's not necessarily a thought form. But after a while, we're just gunked with thoughts, just random thoughts of other people. So it's a way to break this up, expel it out, right? You don't have to visualize anything. You don't have to think about anything. You just use the oils that we've talked about, and then you work this pattern. We're working the three brain pattern from the bottom up. So whichever oil that you have, your awareness is on the sex chakra, and you're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Move your awareness to the low back, opposite the navel on the back side, the Ming Men. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And then move your awareness to your solar plexus below your ribs on your upper abdomen. And then the back heart. Your awareness is on the back heart. And then the brain. Your awareness is on the brain. And then the crown. And then just be still. Just be still. Wherever you feel it in your body right now, check in with your body. Start taking some nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And then just be still. Let's go through and do it one more time, just real quick. Sixth chakra, long, slow, deep breaths. And then the low back, which is the Mingmen. Then the front solar, the area below your ribs. The back heart. The brain. How's it feel? Your awareness is on your brain. Hmm. And then your crown. And then just be still. Feels nice, yeah. I mean, we did a little quick version of it, but yeah, it's a nice way just to strip off the day, you know. So we are going over to the prayer, petition, blessing. Please join us if you can. We're going to do a little meditation with Moses technique. Join us if you can. If not, we have the body mapping and 3 brain study group tomorrow night. And then we have the generational healing class this weekend, which I think a bunch of you are already signed up for. So should be a very good class. So hope to see you sometime soon. If not, maybe next Tuesday. Take care.